Joseph Stalin indirectly murdered 20 million people, yet he advanced the nation of Russia socially and economically. Did he benefit his nation enough to outrule the extreme causes he went to achieve his goals? Political power and who holds it has been a heavily debated topic throughout history. In Julius Caesar, it was debated whether or not Caesar was acting for the greater good of Rome, which ultimately led to his downfall. Leaders have tortured their citizens, yet advanced their nations forward at the same time. This begs the question, do political leaders act in the best interests for their nation? Looking at the present and throughout history, leaders have typically acted to prosper themselves and those near to them, instead of the entire nation as a whole. There have been exceptions to this trend, but the lure of power and the need to support themselves have driven most politicians to act negatively. Many leaders act destructively because of the need to prosper themselves materialistically. Robert Mugabe, leader of Zimbabwe, is a good example. Mugabe has negatively affected his country by forcing white farmers to leave. He did this because these farmers were threatening his chance to make more money and benefit himself. Mugabe's act against these farmers affected Zimbabwe negatively because these farmers gave Zimbabwe profit. Without them, Zimbabwe has struggled economically, and Mugabe and his close followers are the only ones in the African nation who lead a prosperous life. Mugabe is one good example because he enjoys a wealthy life while everyone else in Zimbabwe struggles due to his own actions as leader. Leaders also sometimes put themselves ahead of their nation because of the need to acquire power and be in a secure position. But it often denies those below them a right to have a voice. An example of this is a leader who denies those below him basic rights to hold power, and this is Kim Jong-il, leader of North Korea. In North Korea, people are forced to believe that they live in a paradise when they really don't. Could you imagine living in a place where you receive no outside news, and when you do, it is lies? This is what happens in North Korea. Kim does this to acquire power and rise to the top. His people suffer and are denied basic human rights just so he can accomplish what he wants. Kim Jong-il exemplifies a power-hungry leader who will sacrifice the well-being and rights of his citizens to accomplish what he wants, which is the acquisition of power for himself. Some may argue that the majority of political leaders do the best they can for their citizens and their nation. Yes, there are many leaders who do good for their nation and their citizens, and put in their best effort to advance politically, nationally, and socially. But the majority of leaders bring consequences to their nations. Looking at the developing nations of the world, such as the nations of Africa, they usually are in that position because of power and material-hungry leaders, destroying their opportunity to better themselves. Being a highly debated topic, I believe the majority of political leaders throughout history and in the present have committed negative acts to not benefit their nation as a whole. Taking examples like Robert Mugabe, who ruled negatively for material gain, and Kim Jong-il, who ruled for power obsessively, there are other examples as well. Do the good outweigh the bad? In my opinion, the majority of rulers do not act for the best benefit of their nation. As a result, citizens under them face hardship. Examples of these kinds of leaders are found in Julius Caesar, developing nations around the world, and other situations.